Hugh Freeze talks a lot of offense in his Monday press conference. Let's break it down.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
What's up? We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we're ready to rock and roll. It's another Tuesday, a day after the press, typical all of Hugh's press conferences, his media appearances. You had Tiger Talk. You have his Monday morning press conferences. Big correction day as far as practice goes, and he kind of opened up a little bit and told us a lot of stuff I think that we were looking forward to hearing about, and then some stuff that was a little bit puzzling, especially on the defense, and we'll dive into that. But before we get started, we got to give a shout out to MyBookie. Look down below. Use coupon code NEXTROUND, one word, for a double up deposit bonus up to $1,000. So I guess you can give up to $500. You can deposit up to $500. They'll give you another $500 on top to play with, absolutely free. So little bit of not a ton of risk, You just sign up, deposit, boom, they'll double it up. Then you can go hit that sports book, bet any way you can imagine, live lines, first halves, second halves, all that good stuff. They got it going on. NFL, college football, whatever you can imagine, they have it. So check them out, mybookie.ag. Another Tuesday, another press conference to break down. And this one was, a little bit more insightful, I feel like, than others. I mean, it was good. There was a lot of things that Hugh shared that he's so incredibly honest, and I appreciate it, sometimes to a fault, but I really appreciate the stuff that he actually does share with the media. Starting off, obviously, a lot of the questions revolved around Hank Dadgum Brown and his performance on Saturday. And one of the things that jumped out to me, there was a couple of things that jumped out to me, but one thing Hugh said that I've never heard him use this stat before, or never heard him really talk about this before, but he said he was 100%. Hank was 100% in checking into the correct run play. So he got us into the right play 100% of the time as far as runs go, which to me is that's one of the things. Obviously, when you have a redshirt freshman going in on his first start ever, that's one of the things you worry about more than anything, really, is being able to check into the correct play. It also tells me that it doesn't seem like the playbook was quite as dumbed down as you would think. That's our condensed or whatever, because you still had a lot of different checks and things that the quarterback had freedom to move you into if he diagnosed a bad play. And that is such a big part of the offense. That is such a big part of playing quarterback now, is being able to not only just get a play and go execute it, but get a play and it's a part of a package. And then when you see a defensive look, you're able to switch to another play in that package to be able to take advantage of what the defense is giving you. And I think that's incredible that Hank, in his very first start, in the rain, the excitement around it, the crowd erupting whenever they call his name, not getting overhyped, being able to kind of settle down and make those correct checks. I think that's really that was very impressive. And again, it definitely resonated with Hugh, because I've never heard him share that. I've never heard him say Peyton got us into 10 out of the correct 12 runs or something like that. I've never really heard him talk about this, that perspective at all, like that percentage, that statistic, really at all. So that normally is a good sign. So that means that Hank's doing the right thing. So the offensive line they talked about the offensive line really kept him clean, and so Hank didn't have a ton of pressure, but the times that he did have pressure, Hugh mentioned he still stood in there and made really good throws. One in particular was the touchdown to Micah Riley. Typically, he said, whenever you do a rollout, they can bring an extra guy, and they did do that. He didn't really get to him, but he was in his face when he delivered the throw on the run to score the touchdown. And I mean, when you're playing this type of game, when you're playing this type of opponent, typically you're not going to get a ton of pass rush. They don't have the athletes to be able to rush the passer. So my big thing that I was watching was, if they got a pass rush, what did Hank look like? If they got a pass rush, if they got in his face, what did he look like? Because on the flip side, when Peyton struggled, it was when guys were getting in his face, when the rush was closing in. So I wanted to try to pick out some times where I felt like that was the pass rush was closing in, and there was a couple of times when he either got hit after a pass or he stood in and delivered a ball. And one in particular was at the end, close to the end of the game, Perry's long reception. Hank took a big shot. When he delivered that ball. And that was one of those where you had one-on-one coverage and you just had to make sure that you got it in the vicinity. You just had to make sure you got it there. Because and only gave your receiver the opportunity to make the play. And Perry obviously made a great adjustment and made that play. But that was standing tall in the pocket and delivering one when you're about to take a hit. And that was big. And then there was another time where Hank was I think this was actually on a first down play. Hank started off looking at the right side of the field, then whipped it back to the left side of the field and just ripped one on like a comeback route to KLS on first down. And he took a big hit as well. And I think he kind of knew that hit was coming. So there's very few times where, and then obviously the rollout pass where he had a guy in his face. Those are the key moments that Hugh noticed. That I think a lot of us noticed. That's the kind of stuff you're watching to see if Hank can handle that part of it, because we have so much trauma watching other quarterbacks struggle when the pass rush starts coming in, because as you get to the SEC, it's not going to be a clean pocket every time. It's not going to be just stand back there and you got all day to deliver, or you drop back and you get the ball out and you know that you're not going to get hit. You know that you're not going to have any hands getting on you. You're not going to have anybody close to you. That's not going to be the case as the schedule starts to ramp up. It's probably not going to be the case Saturday. Arkansas has probably got some athletes that can give us some fits, give our offensive line some fits. So, as quick as Hank made decisions, there's going to be some times where I'm sure he's going to get he's going to take some contact. He's going to get hit. He hasn't been sacked yet. So that's something else that's more than likely, could happen this weekend. So how does he respond? You didn't get a ton of, I guess, that we weren't able to see a ton of that, how he would respond to that, because the pocket was so clean, but you caught some glimpses of when guys are barreling down on him and he knows it. He still stands in there and makes the throws that he needs to make. And I think that's big. I think that's a good sign. And I'm glad that I'm really glad it was this game that was the first game, his first start, because even though I think he's an ultra confident guy, it was big not to be a Georgia on the road or an Oklahoma at home with a lot of pressure on it, or heck, even Arkansas. This was a good one. He could sort of get his feet wet, literally and figuratively, in the rain, and not have a ton of pressure from the actual pressure from the defensive line, and then just pressure on the game. Like, you feel confident if you just execute what you got to do, you're better than this team. The spread was 24, 25 points when it closed. So you feel like you're better than this team. So you just got to go out and kind of do what you know how to do. So a lot of glowing reviews. Said he only made 3 real mental mistakes. Those were corrected. One was play clock management, and that's expected. Checking into a play late in the play clock and not being able to get it in, and then not having the awareness to look up and see the play clock and call timeout or do whatever you have to do there. So that to me is easy to correct. I think he forced maybe one pass into coverage. Definitely the one late in the game could have been picked off. The very last pass that he threw could have been picked off. But other than that, there were some wet ball issues that I thought was interesting. Something I didn't even think about late in the first half, trying to they called a bunch of timeouts to get the ball back at the end of the second half. And then, you have a big punt return, and then you have two penalties that somehow it ended up being like 60 yards. It's crazy. And then you can't call timeout. So you got to keep the same ball that's out there. So you're struggling, and you noticed Hank struggled a little bit with a wet ball as far as like getting it out and stuff like that. It was, slipping and had some passes kind of flutter. But other than that, had a really, really clean game, and Hugh acknowledged it, and I thought that was great. He asked a bunch of questions about Hank, and all of them seemed to be pretty glowing reviews. We want to switch gears, talk about Malcolm Simmons and the possible Malcolm package that could be coming to a Saturday near you. But before we get started, we got to give a shout out to our boy Ford Stokes with retirement results presented by Active Wealth. Look, I understand that people may already have something in play. I understand that a lot of people have already started working on this, and you may have a work 401k, or you may have this, or you may have that. But how do you know that what you have going is performing at the optimal level? How do you know that what you have has the least amount of fees as possible? You're saving the money. How do you know that your money's not, a lot of it's not going to fees, or you're protected from the IRS? Ford Stokes can do all this stuff for you guys. He can check all these things, and he'll do it for you absolutely free. You go to retirementresults.com/plan, and you can make sure that your retirement plan is getting you on the path to where you need to be. So tell him War Eagle, tell him I sent you. Great guy, make a friend at the same time. Ford Stokes with retirement results presented by Active Wealth. Everybody and their mother and their cousins and their aunts and their uncles want to see more Malcolm Simmons. And I think that was one of the questions that was asked. Coach, Malcolm Simmons seems like every time you put the ball in his hands, something happens that's great. How does he get how does he get more on how does he get on the field more? What does he have to show to get get more touches? And Hugh, I honestly, he gushes over Malcolm. He really does. Every time he talks about Malcolm, you can really, really sense how excited he is about this guy, about this kid. And he said, look, I love everything about him. He goes 100 miles an hour all the time with a smile on his face, does all the right things. He's just got to learn the playbook. He's got to learn the playbook. And I know some people may roll your eyes at that, but there is a big aspect, especially to wide receivers. If you're running the wrong routes, a lot of times it's not just your route that matters. There's routes that are put in combination with others that make other routes open up. And there's a whole aspect to things that if you can't trust somebody for 100%, knowing that they're going to do the right things, it's hard to put them in there in a crucial situation. Even though if there's some way you can get him the ball, he can do great things. You can't just continue to put him in there and let it be a jet sweep. Well, I mean, everybody and their mother will know that that's going to happen, and they'll start defending it. But what Hugh did say is that, hey, I think it is time to have a Malcolm package. I really do. He goes, I don't care if I got to have him on my play sheet. I got to have a little box down on the bottom that just says Malcolm, and it's all the 10, 15 plays, whatever it is that Malcolm can run. And I love that he said that. I love that he said that because, A, he acknowledges, which, again, this is what one of the things I love about Hugh is like he's kind of feeling and saying a lot of the things that we feel at the same time. So he's acknowledging that we got to get him on the field, and this is a way we can do it. And then B, now every defensive coordinator in the country has to defend with a mindset of a Malcolm package, has to prepare with a mindset of a Malcolm package. Now, when you see him go out on the field, there has to be attention on him like that. There has to be attention on him now, even no matter where he steps on the field. And I love that. And that's perfect too, because he can go in, and if right now he's only able to really execute 10 to 15 plays, where you can trust him, that's fine, because those 10 to 15 plays, eyes are going to be on him. Either he's going to make a play, or there's going to be eyes on him that could free up someone else. I thought that was genius. That's a little bit of the beauty of being so honest, is that you can put stuff out there, and now everybody's got to watch film on Malcolm Simmons. I think he really could get a shot at punt return. I think that's something I'm going to be watching over the rest of the week, and see if that's something that, as the game rolls around, can you put him back there at punt return? You saw how electric he was at kickoff return. Like I think it needs to be him, and I think it needs to be him and Cobb deep. I get the Sean Jackson thing. Maybe he's an extra blocker, but I think you need to have the option where they basically, either if they kick it deep, you got to basically pick one, pick your poison, and then, or they're just going to keep doing this little pooch kick to the tight end or whatever. And then that's another thing, is if he can diagnose that that's going to happen, Malcolm could run up and actually make that play like he did. He didn't do that in particular, but they snuck him over there for that little pooch kick in the game Saturday. So Malcolm package, could it be coming? I hope it's coming Saturday. I want to see this guy get touches. Like I want 3 to 4 touches a game from this kid. I just think it's going to be 10 yards at minimum, 10 yards with the potential of an explosion every time he touches the ball, it feels like. So let's see what happens. But I enjoyed that portion talking about Malcolm, and just how Hugh just lights up, literally lights up talking about him. Switching gears, I expected a lot more questions about the defense. I was a little bit shocked that there wasn't. Everybody, it was mostly offense, mostly Hank, offensive line, injuries, stuff like that, and just not a ton about defense. I think he was asked one question about defense, and the big thing that stuck out to me was his description of how they played, how the defensive line looked sluggish. That was his term, sluggish. And then he went into that they pulled the GPS data from practice because they felt like they did have a heavy workload preparing for all the things that this quarterback can do, which this quarterback you're playing on Saturday can also do. And he thought, maybe it was the workload. They had a little bit of a bigger workload this week than they did the week before. And, maybe that's possible. Maybe that's possible. But to me, sluggish means slow to me. They look slow. Okay. Well, the thing I'm like, wondering is, they look slow because they're practice, or they look slow because they're slow. Okay. When you're rushing the passer with 3 guys, and 2 of them are Isaiah Rakes and Zeke Walker, those aren't speed rushers. Those aren't guys that are going to really be able to chase down a quarterback. They're not going to be guys that can really, contain a pocket, or keep a pocket, maintain pocket integrity where the guy can't break and run around for 4 or 5 seconds. Like, those are not the guys you need out there. You're going to expect to be out there to be, pinning their ears back and not looking sluggish. Like that's not them being sluggish. That's just kind of the player they are. They're really more, gap control and run stopping defensive linemen. They're not pass rushers. And we kind of took the speed aspect out of it. Whether you were putting Jalen McLeod or Kieron Crawford as a spy or flat control, that they were sort of neutralized. They were sort of taken out of the game. Like the speed aspect of it, where you wouldn't have to look sluggish, it was sort of removed from the game plan. And I think maybe that has a lot more to do with the look of being sluggish than, actually being sluggish. And then the defensive backs, that just helps put them more in a bind when you can't pressure the quarterback, or you allow the quarterback to be able to break the containment, even though maybe he didn't get a lot of rushing yards. Hey, getting outside of the tackles is just as deadly as running for 10 yards, because if you can get outside the tackle, you just have that many more seconds for our defensive backs to have to be in coverage, especially down the field where they struggle with balls in the air. They struggle with ball skills, being able to track a ball in the air and make a play on it. They're always sort of playing in chase versus playing in phase where they're up on the guy and they can turn their head around. Everybody's like, well, they never got their head around. Well, no, duh, because they're getting beat. they're trying to close ground to make sure they didn't give up a big play, and that's not good. That is not good at all. So I'm hoping that now they did make some adjustments and they did bring a little bit more pressure as the game went on. But I think that needs to become more part of the every down playbook versus, just 3 men going and, maybe you'll send a linebacker or I guess you'll send 3 or 4 every single time. You'll send 3 every time. You'll probably send 4 a lot of times, but the 4 could be Jaron Thompson, the safety, which happened multiple times. It could be Eugene Asante. I mean, I just feel like McLeod needs to be coming off the edge at least 75 to 80% of the time. I feel like Kieran Crawford, when he's in there, needs to have his ears pinned back coming 75 to 80% of the time. I'm not a big fan of this. I'm not a big fan of what we saw Saturday. I'm not a big fan of the, if you're going to run that front, you got to bring more pressure than just what you brought. And I think that has a lot more to do with the sluggish look than actually being, having too much of a workload the week prior. Now, I'm not saying that's impossible. It's very possible that is the case. They overworked and they were a little bit tired, and then the wet field. I get that that's a possibility, but I think it's just the look of being sluggish was because you took the speed out of the game. You took the speed out of the game, so you were slower in attack because you removed your quicker guys from being able to get back there and make plays. So let's see if they make those adjustments. I got a feeling they will, and they'll be a little bit more attacking with Arkansas. So we'll see what happens. Guys, if you need to subscribe to thebarnauburn.com, I'm preaching it every single day from the top of the trees, from the treetops, from the mountaintops. Sign up for thebarnauburn.com for $1. We had some great scoop yesterday on quarterback recruiting, a name that's kind of out there that I feel like we had out there before anybody. So definitely check that out, as well as everything else that's going on with the team, injury updates, possible game plan type stuff. Like, we got a lot of different sources all over the place. The Barn Auburn is a fun place to be. You can try it for only $1 for your first month. If you love it, great. If you hate it, you're only out $1. Move on. And then, I'm sorry. I don't think that's going to be the case, but it could happen. If you like this video, like it. If you like this channel, subscribe to it. Follow me on Twitter, _Charlie_5. And we're going to be back every single day. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.